This is Leadership in Action, and I'm Casey Cheshire. Join me as we delve deep into the passions, expertise, and experiences of Boston area innovators. Sponsored by the Boston chapter of the Entrepreneurs Organization. This is Leadership in Action. Here we go. We're doing this thing. All right, everyone. I can't wait to introduce our guest today. Man, so much to tell. How do I even introduce this person? I think more than anyone I've ever met, he is a serial entrepreneur, even from the days of a 13-year-old kicking around, starting companies. He's been creating groups and teams and companies across the decades. Prior to his current team right now, he was in executive positions in the hotel and hospitality industry. Currently the president and founder of Overbrook Support Services. Ted Palashis, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Casey. Nice to be here.
Yeah, I can't wait to sort of like crack this egg and open it up and just learn all the wisdom that comes from founding so many companies. I'm sure there's lessons to be told in there. So I'm going to stop talking and I want to pass it over to you. And really that first question is, what is a common misconception around leadership or being an entrepreneur?
So I think coming from the service business, I started young. My family were all entrepreneurs. The thing that's always really kind of fascinated me, sort of driven me kind of bananas, is the difference between what people consider customer service. And so how I define it is there's a marked difference between customer service and customer compliance.
Customer what?
Customer compliance.
Compliance. Okay. So,
and I would put a challenge out there to ask, certainly anyone that's listening, or just people in general that I've come across, how many experiences have they had that have been truly memorable in a good way? And we over the years, what we've done is we sort of distill this down to a very simple way to determine the difference between customer service and customer compliance. And that is, if it makes you feel good, it's good service. If it makes you feel bad, it's bad service. And it's as simple as that. The thing that what I've found over the years is that most people want to do the right thing. It really is an issue of training, and also the cultural disposition of the company or the organization that they work with. So, we'd asked the question in an earlier conversation: how do you do this right? And those things that we followed over the years were, it's really hiring for empathy. So what does that mean? You need to really visualize and understand the client and what the client concerns are. So, at Overbrook in our company, we're a service company, and we provide service for laboratories. So these are the type of laboratories that I think a lot of people have seen on television, CSI, or in laboratories that, drug development, drug discovery, environmental laboratories, as well as forensics. And oftentimes we're asked, we're called by clients that are basically, their instrumentation is not working. They're in a situation they can't produce the samples that they're looking to produce, and they're in a pickle. So what we trained is to try to really visualize what the customer's situation is. What pressures are they under to that brought them to us to begin with? And if you really are empathetic towards what the customer is experiencing, then you can't help but be customer centric. The other thing that we do is we hire for career people, not necessarily for job people. And the reason that I mention that is in the lifespan of a business or a relationship, there are going to be these ups and downs. So the folks that we bring in on our team are those that are not only empathetic, but also those that are empathetic towards the relationship with the client, as well as their situation, internally with our organization.
Yeah.
And we have this expression, find a way to yes. This is part of that empathy that we try to empathize. And we also train for customer service. A lot of it is very nuanced. So that everything from how to answer the phone. And in fact, I had a colleague once that he was he was very intuitive in terms of how customers react to how you speak on the phone. What he said was, the telephone is your front door in many respects. And he used an example of Ted, somebody calls you and you answer the phone. Hey, Joe, how you doing? As opposed to, hey, Joe, how you doing? You're saying the same exact thing, but one imparts a sense of excitement or enthusiasm that that person is actually, calling you. And over the years, what we've instilled, at least on our end, is we're never in meetings when a customer calls. We're always at meetings, in fact, but the point is you don't want to let the customer know that you're at a meeting. So there's a different way of responding to that. If somebody calls and says, I'm interested in speaking to Ted or Joe or Diane or whoever, our response is always, you know what? Let me see if I can grab them for you. Hold on just a minute. And what you do is you automatically put yourself in the position of being an advocate for the client, because no one wants.
Could you say that again? That was really cool. How'd you answer that?
So if somebody calls, and we never tell people, that's the golden rule. We're never at meetings. Right. We try to respond with, you know what, let me see if I can grab him or grab her for you. Hold on just a minute. And then you get back on the phone and you say, Mike, I'm so sorry. It looks like he's unavailable. Is there anything I can do for you? So what it does is it puts you in the position to advocate for the client. The client feels like, you know what, this person's really gunning for me. Right?
Yeah, that's not like passing the buck. You're like, well, that's handled by Mike and he's not here.
Right. Or, you know what, Mike's at a meeting or Ted's at a meeting. And then what's the immediate response or the immediate reaction to that is, oh, so what am I, chopped liver?
Exactly. Right.
Right. So
I'm a meeting right now. Have them come out here.
Exactly. So that's the other thing that again, and these are very nuanced little training nuggets, I guess that you call them. The other thing that we do is we always try to follow up once the deliverable is made, because it does a number of things. Number one, it gives an indication of how well you did. The other thing that it does is it shows the client that you care how well it turned out, whether it was a service call, whether it was a project. And you'd be surprised at how much information you get post-project or post-engagement with the client. And it enables you to get that much closer to what the situation is if, in fact, the client, there was something that was an oversight or it wasn't up to the expectation of the experience. So again, it's a very simple, if it makes you feel good, then it was good service. If it makes you feel bad, then it wasn't good service. Now, you can take, and we've done this on occasion, sometimes you do drop the ball. It's inevitable. Over 20 years of being in business, there are things that sometimes, you think you could have done better. But the recovery, showing that you really do care about the client and you care about the success of the client and what the client's challenges are, makes a huge difference. And I found out over the years that sometimes the recovery is more important than the actual delivery, because that really shows that you do care. So,
it is all about showing that the outcome means something to you.
And you got to do it sincerely, not, this happens all the time. You go to a restaurant, and you're in the middle of a conversation with somebody, and the waiter or the wait person comes in and interrupts you mid-sentences. So how's your meal? Yeah. And so, oftentimes, well, you just interrupted me for one.
Yeah.
Right. And you're fishing for a compliment. I'm thinking you're fishing for a compliment. That's not the way to do it. It really has to be sincere.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. And you have to hire for that. Hire for people that.
Correct.
Because you can train the nuance, but you can't train that empathy. Like, you need to hire people that do care. But I think there's probably something to making sure your selection criteria of clients too are the ones you can care about. And I think sometimes they illustrate that they're they're making it hard for you to care about them, then you need to move on because they're violating your
Right.
ethos.
Well, and that's one of the, I think at one point when we talked earlier, you had asked, are there any books that you might be able to recommend?
Yeah.
And that in particular, there's an excellent book called The Service Profit Chain. It's by, I have it actually on my desk, Heskett, Sasser, and Schlesinger. And to your point, they define clients, and they have an arc, isn't it? They have a good visual for it. From the low end, from terrorists to apostles. And the idea is you want to get above the zone of indifference. So on the lower end, the terrorists will never be happy with what you do. No matter how you do it, it's always going to be problematic. And the apostles are those that are always going to recommend you to somebody else. And so the idea is to try over time is to try to focus your attention and focus your efforts on those that are, and in the middle is the zone of indifference, where they could go either way. The idea is to focus on those on the higher end of that scale, which are those that the apostles, and that's what we try to do. But that book is a tremendous resource. And
that sounds amazing. You say it's Service Profit Chain, is that correct?
Yeah, in fact, it's called the Service Profit Chain. It's by, let's see, I'm showing it on my screens. I have to read it backwards. Nice. It's by Heskett. Yeah, James Heskett, Earl Sasser, and Leonard Schlesinger.
That sounds like one of those books you keep.
Yeah, so I would highly recommend it.
Put bookmarks in it and you keep it on your desk, kind of thing. Yeah.
Correct.
Cool. I have not heard of that one, but it makes total sense. You don't want them in the red zone, but you also want them out of indifference, because indifference can leave you in a heartbeat.
Correct.
For a better price. You want the ones that are, what'd you call, what's the best zone? The loyalty?
So they're called the apostles, those that truly believe in what you do. And they also, clients like that are those that appreciate and understand what goes into what you're doing. They have a sense of appreciation for making their lives easier. And that's one of our bylines, which is, giving people peace of mind. Because after all, being able, the service business is doing it so you don't have to.
Yeah.
Once when I was younger, there was a bumper sticker I saw in a car once. I don't even remember the name of the band. XYZ band, playing music so you don't have to. And so we've adopted the principle, which is, servicing, in our case, servicing your assets so you don't have to. And that's the same with any service business. And in fact, I would venture to say that every business is a service business. The particular type of business is that vehicle in which you practice customer service.
And whether it's a human or a SaaS app doing it, it's doing it so you don't have to your point. Yeah.
Which is, again, case which is a lot different from customer compliance.
Yeah, I was just going to take us back to that. Tell me about the compliance then. How does that?
Okay, so an example, getting on the phone. Thank you for calling. Your call is very important to us. Your wait time is 8 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever it is. So I give it, the litmus test. Does it make you feel good or does it make you feel bad? Right? If you're that busy, you should have somebody else you should have enough personnel to be able to answer the phone.
So in that message, to your point, the way it was spoken too, especially if someone, thank you for calling. This is the blah, blah, blah. Job.
Yeah, right. And so that's also an empathetic training moment, which is you can be really busy and sometimes the economics don't necessarily render themselves to have, a bank of operators or administrative people answering the phone. That being said, there's a way to answer the phone, which is empathetic towards the customer, which is you pick up the phone within 3 rings, like, can I help you? XYZ company, Overbrook Support Services, can I help you? Yeah, I'm having a problem with a particular instrument. Let me see what we can do for you. Can I ask you to hold for a second, as opposed to, which is customer compliance, the phone rings, you pick up the phone. I get this sometimes at where I get my hair cut. XYZ salon, please hold. And they put you on hold. It's like, wait a minute. How do you know that I want to get my hair cut? I might be somebody that's in distress. I mean, it's being empathetic towards the fact that the client is calling you in most cases, and in many cases, to give you a check, right? Or to pay you for your services. And
or to
something that
get a register and get an appointment.
I'll share a story with you.
Once. Yeah, please do.
So I used to work for a large, it's a financial company. So this was in between businesses, and I was in the sales end. And so we would have sales meetings once a week. And so we go into chambers, a big conference room, and I'll never forget this. The VP of sales told the sales, mind you, told the administrator, hold all our calls, all the salespeople, hold all our calls. We're in a meeting. And I was just at the cusp of closing a deal. I was waiting for this customer to call me to give me the approval. And I said, I'm waiting for a call. It's too bad. We're in a meeting. So, another reason why I'm an entrepreneur, and I don't necessarily work for a really large company, says, so we're going to sit here in a meeting for an hour to figure out how we're going to get people to call us and write us a check. And I got I'm waiting for somebody to call me and write me a check, and we're not going to take his call. Right? Is that the customer complying to us, or is it servicing the client? Again.
Oh, so you're saying the customer is complying to our wishes versus us serving them. So it's like, who's serving who?
Correct.
Got it.
Correct. And that's the marked difference between customer compliance and customer service. So is the customer complying to the way the business wants to run its business, or are they running their business based on what the concerns are for the client and how the client wants to do business with you?
Got it. And your test is, how did I feel after that encounter?
Very simple.
Yeah. And it could be indifferent. It could be anger, right? Or it could be, wow. I get that little bit of a wow thing, Chick-fil-A. And, like, they don't have to smile at me and be so friendly. And even if I know they're told to say my pleasure, like, I don't know the selection, I can't quite piece it together, but somehow the recipe, not even the chicken's pretty good, but the recipe of the staff is just so different from you go visit a Burger King. And, God bless the Whopper, but when you have someone who's like, could care if you died in front of them at the register, you feel that. Correct. And it's just it's a positive, and you're like, no, positive. Correct. Yeah. It's a little nuances. I think the nuances add up to whatever the opposite of nuance is, right? It's ever present.
And in fact, I'm not saying it's easy, because everyone is, and especially in this economy. But, and I learned this very early on, that if you take the time, that's the investment in that person, right? And that person's approach and that person's understanding of the culture, which is extremely important. And that'll pay off, 100-fold, 1,000-fold. Again, it's really it's being customer, it's caring enough about the client for you to do business the way they would like to do business. And I'm saying, the old expression, the customer is always right. Maybe yes, maybe no, but the customer is always the customer. And they're always the ones that are paying your, that are paying your rent, that are writing you a check. And
that's the quote right there, right? I
mean,
mean,
it is, but and then in fact it goes beyond that too. And I truly believe this. So aside from our mission, which is to help other clients, I mean, in our case, they got cancers to cure and differences to make in people's lives. And our mission is to make their mission possible, right? But it's also from a customer-centric point of view. What you're doing is again, if it makes you feel good, you're making people feel good, right? And so if they're feeling good, it's something that can certainly be contagious. And I'm not necessarily, the whole kumbaya moment, but it really makes an impact on how people feel about you, how they feel about each other. And in turn, I think it makes them more, productive in what they do, because it makes them enjoy their work that much more, because you don't have that friction or that feeling of, oh, Jesus, what a grind. I got to call those people again. Oh, Jesus, that's the last thing I want. So it's the opposite of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally makes sense. Yeah. And I think it's important to call out that you mentioned that it's an investment in time, and that alludes to there is a cost. There is a cost either in that moment or beforehand to train it, but there is a return on that. But that, yes, you do need to, you can't, it doesn't just happen.
Correct.
Just mentioning in a board meeting or dreaming about it, you spend the time on the uniforms, or spend the time on the training, or hiring the right person may cost just a little bit more. But you do need to invest that. But then of anything you're going to invest, of any of the bets you're going to place, placing it on that customer. Your customer may not always be right, to your point, but they are, in the end, they're always your customer.
Well, and the ethos of the company has to be sound, right? And we get these complaints all the time, or we get clients. It's like, they're just they're being run by accountants, or it's a VC, it's private equity that's driving the service business, and it's not what it used to be. So therefore, that's why we're calling you, sort of thing. We get that often, because it's just the way of the world. But that's not who we are. That's not who we are.
No, totally. But I am curious though, who are you?
Me.
Can you take me back in time, like little Ted days? Did you always know you're going to be, creating? It sounds like from an early age, maybe you knew you're going to be creating companies, or did it just happen?
So I grew up. My family I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. Like all good Greeks, we grew up in the restaurant business. My father was actually in the hotel business. After the war, he started working for the Sonneborn family, and ended up an executive position as a vice president, and then eventually went in business on his own. And we, as a family, we moved to England. We lived in England. We lived in Hawaii. We lived in Greece.
Wow.
And,
so you're on vacation the whole time, is that it?
Right.
Those are all the places that people want to talk about going to.
Yeah, I tell my wife now, I already had my retirement. Now I have to work for a living. But no, we lived in-house. We lived in the hotels on premise. And I also had an uncle that was in the hotel business, or in the restaurant business.
Okay.
So I worked with him. But my orientation was really, I think, first and foremost on the service business. And the few business that I've had that was the overlying, or the underlying thread of what I did. What the vehicle was just an entrepreneurial venture. I've been doing this for a little over 20 years. And prior to that, I was in the import-export business, with a few stints in between working for companies to sort of learn what I needed to learn in order to be more effective.
What was that like? So you actually lived in the hotel?
In the hotel, yeah.
What was that like? Was it just normal for you because that's what you grew up with, or did you ever?
It was great.
In a house?
Yeah, we moved around a lot. Yes, I lived in a house, but the hotels where we lived on premise. We lived in a hotel room. And even when I was independent and working in hotels and resorts, that was the same thing. And
yeah, so is this the point where you tell me you've got like 1 billion Hilton Honors points at this point?
No, I mean there's something about being the manager's, the manager's kids, of course, living with somebody. My father was a general manager, so we'd be sitting at the dinner table in the dining room, and his eyes would be darting back and forth and looking at which guest was leaning down to pick up something, and he was very
always on at that point. He's always looking out for.
Correct.
I mean, that sounds like that was the model for you then of true customer service.
Correct. Yeah, and when I was younger, it was tough to temper that, because it was, I was probably not as sensitive as I should have been towards people's feelings. Talking about empathy. So, as the European model, of course, was also a lot different than the American model, where Europeans were much more, I wouldn't say subservient, but they were much more, I think they looked at what they probably still do, look at what they do, certainly in the service business, hotels and restaurants in particular, as a profession. In fact, at one point when I moved to this country, back to this country, I worked in a restaurant. I worked at Lockover's downtown Boston. It's one of the oldest freestanding restaurants at the time, and it was very well known. And all the waiters there were all Europeans, and I'll never forget one of them said, "Listen, if you stick around," he'd had the same 4-table station since 1958, which is the year I was born. He says, "Teddy, if you stick around, you'll be able to get your own station." At the time, I was in my mid-20s. Jesus, stick around. I can't imagine doing this in my 50s or 60s. But,
yeah.
But it was what I learned from that, and from my experience working and what was, how much closer can you get to what people put in their stomachs and where they lay their heads down at night. What I learned was that sense, and it's that sense of empathy towards clients, certainly, but really trying to anticipate need, and really having and I don't want to, it's not necessarily cap in hand. It's an ethos of, I'm here to be of value to you.
Mm-hmm.
And you're coming here for a specific reason. And whether it's a meal you want to eat, whether it's an instrument that you need fixed, I'm here, you're there for a reason. And I'm here to be able to provide what you need in a way that's going to make it as pleasant, as painless as possible, and have you walk away with a good experience.
Okay, I wanted to throw a curveball at you, which is
Sure.
that you mentioned a little bit of this already, the idea that the customer is not always right, or but they are the customer.
Right.
What do you do with crazy? What do you do now? Maybe there's the mild expectation misalignment that turns crazy, but then sometimes it's just crazy. How do you handle that?
It's a lot easier the longer you've been in business. And I say that because when you're first starting out, a check is a check, and you try to do whatever you can to get paid. Over time, what you realize, or what I've realized is, and we'll call them the terrorists, so the people that are indifferent to what you're doing and what the service you're providing, or the terrorists that are never going to be happy. In the end run, it's going to be a whole lot more of an energy drain and a cost drain on you to work with those people. And what I try to do is very diplomatically, and I'm not being disingenuous about it, but just very diplomatically say, I don't think it's something we'll be able to provide, or I don't think it's going to be a good fit. And you avoid having to get into a situation where it's like, oh God, it's one of those forehead slapping moments, like I shouldn't have done this. Why did I do this? So avoiding that altogether makes life a whole lot easier, certainly for yourself, maybe even for the client.
Yeah,
because there are crazies.
There are.
That's the way it
And
is.
what a good point of early on. That check, it's a client. You want to make everyone happy, but then what is that you learn? You learn that.
Well, it's part of the qualification process too,
Yeah.
Casey. And that's, again, once, and our folks, and I try to instill this in everyone that's certainly, most of us, if not all of us, are customer facing, that number one, what's bothering the client? Why are they calling us? What is the problem that we're trying to solve?
Yeah.
And where are they on that scale? Again, that the service profit chain elucidates. Are they potential terrorists, or are they potential apostles? Sometimes you don't know. You try to do the best you can. But
Yeah.
what I try to do is first, how can we help you? What is it? Tell me more about what it is that you need help with. Sometimes you don't know until you're stuck in the middle of it.
It's so distracting too, isn't it? You mentioned, it costs you time and money, but it's a distraction from the apostles, the ones in the green square that
Right.
can be singing your praises, and they're in the zone of all things good. What is it? The zone of happiness?
Your apostles, the people that will recommend you to others.
Zone of affection, perhaps. Yeah. Yeah. And we're forgetting about them because these other people are going off the roof. So yeah.
Sometimes somebody you just don't know. Ask anyone who's been divorced from a crazy person after the fact. You don't know until you're into it.
If there was a sensor that could detect that, my goodness, they'd corner the market.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Good. So hypothetical question for you now.
Sure.
Because you actually, I may actually have a time machine.
Okay.
It's up here in Nashua, New Hampshire. It's in the backyard, covered in a
Excellent.
tarp. And so let's say you come visit, we'll get some beers.
Yeah. Let me know if you need service on it. I'd be happy to help you.
Yeah, exactly.
We just need the manuals.
Yeah, no, we don't manuals. We'll just hit buttons. Yeah. But this is a particular kind of time machine, and it goes back in time, and you get to visit yourself early 20s, right?
Yeah.
You get to visit young you doing the thing, younger you doing the thing, and probably inexperienced and just creating things, hospitality, all that. You get to talk to that version of you, and you can tell yourself anything you want. It won't mess up your space-time continuum. What do you tell yourself? What kind of advice would you give yourself?
I don't really, I guess from the perspective, I don't really have any regrets per se, right? So it's not like I should have done this, I should have done that. I probably should have been a little bit more patient, just in general. But that might be, that's an inherent, somebody once called that entrepreneur's disease. There's a lot they got to do in a short amount of time. But I guess the advice I would give myself is probably to take the challenges in life and also in being in business a little less seriously and have more confidence in your abilities or your ability to see your vision come to pass. It's taken a while. I'm in my early 60s now. But
more confidence in your own abilities.
Yeah, and I probably would have spent more time, with the family, I think, early on. And my wife reminds me of that all the time, of the lack of vacation time that we took.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because it's time you could be spent, growing your company.
Well, I mean, that's the thought. I was spending time growing the company as opposed to, growing a deeper relationship with my family. Though I don't, in fact, I don't really have any regrets. I do have things that, I've where I am now is just your decisions become your life, right? And I'm not necessarily unhappy where I am. I'm quite satisfied.
What do you think is what do you credit to that? I mean, that's great that you get to the point. No regrets, some light advice for yourself, but you look back and you're happy with that. I mean, that's what a lot of people want, is to be able to, at whatever point in time, look back and go, yeah.
Yep. One of the most important guideposts for me in life was that we have the power to frame our experiences really any way we want. So being able to look at what you do, no matter what it is one learning experience after another that can be applicable to whatever your endeavor is as you move forward. I thought was very valuable, and I've always taken that to heart, because it's is there failure? Yeah, I suppose there is, but depending on, I guess, on how you look at it, because in the end, I mean, do you fail at life when you die? I died. I guess I'm a failure. I mean,
Well,
everybody
yeah,
dies. It's just the way it
yeah,
is, right? So if
yeah,
you look at your experiences as a constant learning experience, as part, as parts of the whole, then I think to me it's been very beneficial.
man, there it is. So what's next? What are you excited about in terms of the future? What you're working on now with your company and the projects you got?
Um, we're very fortunate that we're in a vertical. We're in the life sciences, and we happen to be in a hub. So we're as busy as we've ever been. We're really fortunate. We have some good long-term clients, and another concept that I've taken to heart is one. Well, I don't know if you've read the discipline of market leaders, but they separate different disciplines. Early on, the premise is that it's important to be able to determine, where where your proficiency is, whether it's customer intimacy, whether it's product excellence. I can't remember the third, but ours really is certainly customer intimacy. And we've been really fortunate through the type of business that we have to have some very intimate relationships with our clients, of which we've learned quite a bit. And the fact that we are in the hub, the type of business that we're in, we found it to be very, very beneficial to us, because we, being natural entrepreneurs, just are, how we approach things. We try to provide that which we find lacking in the marketplace, and it's sort of driven our business, basically, and find opportunity where, blue ocean where others haven't necessarily been able to do so, or find niche areas where large corporations are sort of, that's their playground, but those, second, third tier, in our case, laboratories, who's providing the service to them. So they're in a position where they need the same services. Right. So being a multi-billion-dollar company, not yet, we're able to provide those services, and provide services that are important to these folks that wouldn't necessarily be paid attention to by the larger competitors of ours.
Right. And to your point, you're helping them accomplish their mission, which could be curing cancer. It could be doing any number of different things that really is, making magic on the world. And you're supporting them. You're backing them up in that process. Correct.
And that's really important to us, because and I don't say that idly. I mean, aside from being a service business that really is empathetic towards our clients' requirements or needs, really feeling the mission, which is making a difference in people's lives by enabling us to have our clients fulfill their missions, because they're doing some incredibly important stuff. If they are finding, again, cancer cures, we have clients that worked on the vaccine for COVID. We have clients that are coming up with novel technologies and cures for things. In some cases, some of these years and years of research and expense and effort in doing. But again, helping them, our job is to make sure that they have the tools of the trade, because there's IP, there's personnel, and then they're the assets that make it possible to be able to practice their trade. We take care of that third piece of that, that third leg of the chair. That's what we do. Right.
And the chair needs it. You can't sit on two.
No, you can't.
Oh man. Well, do you have the time these days? And how are you entertaining yourself? Passions outside of work, and it sounds like the work itself is a passion. But do you have other things you do and partake in?
I do. Yeah, I've played music since I was a child. My mother was a music teacher. She was a piano teacher.
Oh, no kidding.
She started us early. So we were 5. I think we started taking lessons. So I play string instruments, mostly guitar. I play guitar and mandolin. I've been playing since 1967, so I was 9. And earlier, prior to that, I played the piano, took piano lessons, and learned theory and whatnot. But I haven't played out since COVID. But I do have a select group of musicians that I get together with. We're all fully vaccinated. And, we get together.
Keeps the band alive, right? Yeah. But wow. So music has kind of always been, I don't say in the background, but it's always been sort of like the soundtrack to this whole thing.
Well, it's being in my mind, being an entrepreneur is about being creative. So that's for me what I do, and I do some writing, but mostly music is a tremendous venue for. It gives me the opportunity to be creative outside of work.
Yeah. So you're not just playing other people's music, then you're actually creating your own.
Oh yeah. Most of what I do, or I've had a few bands. What we do is stuff that we write or that I write.
Hell yeah. Is there anything I should check out? You have a YouTube channel for that, or?
We do have some stuff on YouTube. We have some stuff on SoundCloud.
Oh yeah, SoundCloud, right on.
Yeah. So we're doing.
We'll have to get the links from you and put them in the show notes for folks to click through. And
we can do that.
Get you some listens in there.
Yep.
For sure. Well, and this has been great. Where can people connect with you if they want to reach out, either professionally, fellow EO members, or
sure,
folks in the general community?
Yeah. So through EO for sure, which by the way has been a tremendous. For me, it's just been tremendous, and I had gotten word of EO through a entrepreneurs organization. I got word and was made aware of it by a consultant that we brought on, say close to 17 years ago.
Wow.
I've been part of the chapter since then. And I can't say enough, the dynamic of a place where you can be with other entrepreneurs that sort of share the same challenges, that you can speak openly, where it's safe to really, share. And just as an ad hoc board of directors, I can't tell you how incredibly valuable it's been to me. And I would highly recommend it to anybody that needs a place or feels that they have something to share with others, like themselves. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I wholeheartedly agree, and I think my experience only covers half that amount, if less. So I can only imagine it. But yeah, what I've seen would keep me a part of this community for a long time. Yeah. It's something very humble about it too. There's sort of that out in the world, it's very braggadocious and marketing forward, if you will, but in the EO community, we're not pitching each other. We're literally sharing.
Correct.
And sharing experiences, no advice, it's experience shares. And
exactly right. Yeah, it's tremendous. Yeah, it's been I can't say enough about it and how it's helped me over the years. Yeah,
100%. So where can folks, either in EO or outside of EO, where do you want people reaching out, connecting with you?
Yeah, it's the overbrookgroup.com. It's OVERBROOK group.com. Where you can look up Overbrook Support Services. That's probably an easy way, or one of the easiest ways to find us. Through our website. We've tried to be as customer centric as possible. So whatever page you're on, you can hit contact us, and it'll come through us. And we try to respond within an hour or so, if not sooner, if not immediate.
And truly mean it as well.
Yep.
Hearing you share all of that, you can, any of your customers that hear this will understand that that's not surface level. Like there's a deep desire to be a part of their mission.
Correct. I would hope that message is, because it's heartfelt on our end.
Right. And you can't fake that. I mean, you can smell that a mile away, like a bad Super Bowl commercial.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, absolutely. We'll put links in into the show notes. People can just click right on through and connect with you that way. But thank you so much, Ted, for being here and sharing your knowledge with me and some great books. And I've just had a blast having a conversation with you here.
No, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And for those people listening, if you learned something, and I freaking know you did, because I literally have 2 pages of notes front and back over here, then share this with someone else. That's how you can show thought leadership. Maybe there's another business owner that or your own boss. If you're working on a team, share the gift of this podcast and the things that I've been learning and that we've all been learning here from Ted. Share this with someone else. And yeah, man, again, Ted, thank you so much for being on here.
My pleasure. Thank you, Casey.
All right, everyone. This has been another really cool episode of Leadership in Action. We will see you all next time. Leadership in Action is sponsored by the Boston chapter of the Entrepreneurs Organization. As the world's only peer-to-peer network exclusively for entrepreneurs, EO helps transform the lives of those who transform the world.